taped that just a minute ago, and joining us now, he's been sitting here with me listening, the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, Mike Rogers. He, of course, is a Republican. Mr. McDonough says he thinks Congress will give the president the approval. Do you think so?
Well, I think it's an uphill slog from here, and part of the problem was they started today or last week. They really needed to start 2 years ago on this process and really haven't done it. So they don't have strong relationships in Congress today. That's a huge problem for them. And candidly have done an awful job explaining to the American people what is in our national security, what is the national United States interests in any level of engagement in a place like Syria.
I would just say at this point that I don't know anybody who thinks if the vote were held today that they would get this, that the Congress would go along. Do you disagree with that?
I can't disagree. And the only thing more confusing to me than what their Syria strategy has been the last 2 years is their strategy to try to get buy-in by the representatives in Congress and the American people. It is a confusing mess up to this point, and that has been, I think, their biggest challenge on what is an incredibly important issue. And this cannot be about Barack Obama. It has to be about what is in the best interests of the United States of America. We have to have that debate and that discussion.
You want this. You want Congress to give him the approval. What exactly do you want them to approve?
Well, first of all, I believe in that great adage of peace through strength. And we have lost that. We've muddled that. And that means that we will suffer the consequences of that in the future. We've got to get back to that. I don't think we should even debate a very limited, I mean, the first part of this is not to debate about which missile leaves what ship and hits what target. That is a serious mistake. This is bigger than that. And so when you look at all our national security interests, that first bit being how do we make sure that chemical weapons that have been used, and by the way, this is a pattern of use over a year. This was not the first time. No intervention caused a greater scale of use, and they're using it to their political and tactical advantage, including killing civilians. They believe that helps them. That's why we got here. So what we need to do is say, listen, why don't we empower the president so that we have the credibility for a negotiated settlement? We should stop talking about limited actions and how this works, and nobody, by the way, is calling for massive military intervention. A, it wouldn't work. It would be bad for our national security interests. But right now, we, the United States of America, doesn't have the credibility to go to the opposition and say, stop shooting. We're going to negotiate with Assad for 2 weeks on bringing this to a conclusion and getting him out of power. That's one great way we have to protect the chemical and conventional weapons. So what we ought to do as members of Congress is have a thorough debate about all of the levels of our national security interests. That first, as we said, chemical weapons and conventional weapons. If that spreads throughout the Levant and gets into Europe, we are going to pay a heavy price. The next level up, Iran. They have been a bad actor here. They're using it as a proxy war. This is beyond a Syrian civil war. It's a proxy war. You have Hezbollah troops fighting on behalf of Assad at Iran's direction. You have the Russians there providing military assistance, and I argue military hardware and military goods. All of that stirring a pot that says if we don't find a solution here, that means having credibility to find that solution, which may mean military strikes, this thing is going to descend even further out of control.
Do you think the president hurt his case by saying he wanted to go to the Congress?
Well, I think the way it happened was mystifying to me. So the president announces it on a Saturday, doesn't call Congress back. If you were going to do that, call them back for a serious national security debate. I think that had to happen. Review the evidence that we had so you could have a quick order of events. Instead, he announced it and then left. He left the country for a week. And so members were back in their districts without access to the classified information they needed, I think, to come to a good conclusion.
So you think he's actually lost support in the last week?
I think it's very clear he's lost support in the last week. And again, it's difficult to try to make a decision if you don't have access to the classified information. Not everybody could get back at the times that were stipulated for getting those briefings. And again, my frustration is I think that this is an important piece of America's national security moving forward. And it does mean our relationship with Russia. It does mean, do we get a nuclear Iran or not? Can we contain North Korea in its efforts? By the way, they have huge chemical and biological stockpiles that make us all very nervous. The decisions we make here will impact those decisions that those countries make on the use of these kinds of weapons. That's why this is so important to the world national security and U.S. national security.
Let me ask you this question. A lot of members, both Democrats and Republicans, are saying the reaction from their constituents is overwhelmingly against any kind of action here. Are you getting that kind of reaction?
Absolutely. I mean, people in my
and you're willing to go ahead and support this, well, even though your constituents are against it?
Well, again, these are national security issues. So as a representative democracy, we need to come here and we need to have this debate. I completely understand why people are skeptical of this. You have a reluctant commander-in-chief, first of all, who's trying to come to the American people and say, I'm going to do something, but I'm not going to do a lot. I'm not sure exactly what we're trying to do. I mean, that's what American people are hearing. And hearing that, I'm skeptical as well. And I'm frustrated with this president and his steps on Syria and other foreign policy issues that got us to the place that we are today. The problem is here, if we just make it about us versus us being Congress or the American people against our frustrations against this president, we miss the big picture about what is in the best interest of U.S. national security interests. Small and effective now saves big and ugly later. So we're either going to pay this price now or we're going to pay a bigger price later. The president hasn't made the case. Again, it's confounding. They're going to send up this week. Think about this. This tells you the relationship with Congress, and it's not great. They're sending up Susan Rice to brief Congress on the year anniversary of Benghazi. And they're trying to win votes. I mean, the credibility gap there is huge. They need to regroup here, think about where they want to go, and make this about America's national security, not just how many targets they're going to strike in Syria.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for being with us.